Five, four, three, two, one.
All right then, hello, willkommen, bienvenue. It's time for another Amish Inquisition, episode 324, on Sunday, the 7th of April, 2024. I'm Phil.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Matt.
And we're very happy to be joined tonight by Paul Smith, a fellow YouTuber and Esoteric Explorer. How are you doing, Paul?
Yeah, great, mate. Thanks for having us on. Very honoured.
Well, you're more than welcome. I was trying to think back because I think I found your Nutrient Nirvana channel. It must be over a year ago, and it was around the time when we first had Ralph Ellis on the show. I'd heard him on another podcast, the Grimerica show, and I hadn't read any of his books, so I went on YouTube just for a cursory search to try and do a bit of research, and I found your channel. You'd spoke to him once or twice, at least, I think, at that point, but you must have done, 10, 15 shows with Ralph?
I think it's about 30, to be honest with you, mate. Yeah, it's crazy, I know. Yeah. I just asked him one day on Messenger on Facebook, would you like to do an interview? And he said, yeah, why not? Sure. And then I think it was about 25 videos in after that. And he was like, why am I on a dieting channel? So that's pretty much why I started the new one, to get Ralph on there and stuff, So, yeah, but it's always a buzz talking to Ralph because he's an absolute genius. He's a polymath. He's a great guy as well. He's a very nice guy. And the research he's done on the Jesus, the historical Jesus, is just phenomenal. It's like, next level. So.
Yeah, had you already read his books before you approached him?
Yeah, I'd read the books, I think, in about 2017, 18, something like that.
Right.
And then I caught him on the Unslaved podcast with Michael Tazarian and David Whitehead, and just was bowled over by it all. So, sorry, that's my cat. I just, and like I say, it was, it's just been a thrill talking to the guy because his knowledge on so many different subjects is phenomenal. So I've never met anyone else like him in my life. So, yeah.
I was watching one of the videos you did with him fairly recently about chemtrails, which was quite interesting.
Oh, well, okay. I had to, I wonder if he's watching this. I had to convince him, to be honest with you. It's something that I've looked into for many years. I was a believer for a very long time. I still believe in geoengineering, okay, but there's a difference between the two. So, geoengineering is weather modification. Chemtrails is, them allegedly poisoning us, which I just don't think there's enough evidence for. That's just me. And I think Ralph did a very good job of explaining that to people on that video. So, yeah, I think it's like 2.5 hours long or something like that. But it's not easy to kind of, break down all the little things in that subject. It's a very, very deep subject. And, but I think we did a good job. The reaction to it was mixed, so, yeah. So it was mixed. Some people were like, sort of willing to question their beliefs after watching it, and other people not. I got a bit of stick for it as well, but I don't really care. At the end of the day, it was an investigation into it, and I think we done a good job. I think he done a very good job, given all his experience of flying around the world for 40 years as a commercial airline pilot. And I've spoken to other pilots as well, commercial airline pilots on that subject, and even one that is a believer in the chemtrail theory, but he admitted that the whole time when he was flying on a plane, he never saw any chemtrails being formed, not once. And he was flying for like 20 odd years. So it's, I don't know. I mean, what do you lot think? Do you believe in chemtrails or what?
No.
Right, okay.
I'm on the fence. You got to, like you said, you got to distinguish between geoengineering, because we've played clips from like NBC News on this podcast of them showing how they do geoengineering with airplanes.
Yeah.
And they have they had a ground source system. Do you remember this clip about 6 months ago? And it looked like a shed on the ground that just pumped, I don't know if it was like aluminium or something else, into the atmosphere to try and modify the weather. Didn't they do it for the World Cup in Qatar or something? Or was it Saudi Arabia or something? They were trying to cloud seeding. Yeah, that's weather modification, cloud seeding.
Yeah, I think they did it for the Chinese Olympics as well fairly recently. I think it was in China, somewhere like that. So yeah, that's no secret. I mean, you can read about geoengineering on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not a conspiracy theory, but I think there's quite a lot of black-pilled people out there that just want to cling on to that belief for whatever reason, you know. But you know, I saw it as being, this is good news. You know, they're not trying to kill us. At least not from the skies, anyway. So,
I mean,
you know, this is a cause for celebration, surely.
One of the things I always think,
just want to cling onto it.
Sorry, Paul. One of the things I think is why spray it from? Why go to the trouble of lifting it up to 35,000 feet to sprays when they can just put it in the water supply?
It's in the food. It's in the food. You know, for God's sake. You know that. You know, it's in the it's in all the rest of it. You know, so why bother? They don't need to do that. You know, I mean, you can think what you like about geoengineering and changing the weather. I suppose that technology could be used for good in certain circumstances, you know, so why not? But yeah, I've left that theory behind now.
Like blocking out the sun, like Bill Gates wants to do.
Well, maybe not that, but you know, if there's a drought somewhere and they can make it rain, then why not? But yeah, I mean, I'm not a supporter of Bill Gates in any way, shape, or form. So.
You know, you were talking about stuff being in the food. Have you been following this microplastics thing that's been getting traction the last 12 months or so?
Yeah, I think so. I know that when babies are born now, you can find microplastics in the placenta, and you can find all sorts of other toxins and metals and things. You know, so it is changing the human race, so to speak. What's in the? I mean, that's one of the sort of reasons, the ways in which I woke up was through the food and through the diet and the stuff that we were being fed. It's so poor now, you know, and there's so many diseases around now, and autoimmune diseases and all sorts of nasty things going around. People my age, I'm 48, I'm approaching 50, and I just know so many people that are sick, and it's not always been this way. And I think it's primarily through the diet, through the food, that people are just, you know, eating a lot of processed foods, not eating like their ancestors, eating naturally, and you know, we're paying the price for it, unfortunately.
Before we get too deep into diet and health and wellness, you mentioned about your sort of waking up process. Maybe you should, because that'd be interesting to hear about. How did you sort of?
Yeah, I think it was a gradual thing for me. It wasn't like overnight or anything like that. I'd always been interested in the paranormal and esoteric stuff since I was a kid, like UFOs, ghosts, and all that kind of thing. And I found a radio station in America called Coast to Coast AM. I don't know if you've heard of it at all. This is going back. Probably about 20 years ago or so. And through that, I found a couple of people. I found Alex Jones, the infamous Alex Jones, I suppose, and a doctor called Dr. Joel Wallach, who did an amazing lecture in the 90s, I think it was, called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And he was talking about all these modern diseases that we have now, and the root cause of those diseases, which are almost always nutrient deficiency. And it was just incredible. And, you know, I just kind of went on from there, really. But yeah, I think 9/11, around that sort of time, that was the big one for me. I remember I'd been at work all day that day and didn't know anything about it because it happened in the morning. There she is again. Sorry about this. And where was I? And I got home from work and saw it on the TV, and I was like, oh my God, that looks like a movie. It doesn't look like it's real life, you know. Started asking questions about that. It's the people that woke up in 2020. I feel really sorry for them people, you know, because they woke up with a bang, a massive bang. You know, there was no, for me, it was a gradual, natural kind of process over maybe 3 or 4 years. Whereas for those poor people, they've woke up overnight. And I think there's been a lot of carnage as a result in the truther movement. And of course, we have, I don't want to upset anyone, but I'm not a flat earther, you know. I find the Tartarian stuff quite interesting. But I think a lot of it is probably bogus. But there are things going on with that are interesting to look at. But there are a lot of psyops out there, and there's so much disinformation provided by, you know, the people upstairs to try and, you know, sort of take us away from the path or whatever. And a lot of people are just lost now, I think, you know, lost in all the psyops and all the rest of it. And it's a big shame. And, you know.
Yeah. Did you get into, just thinking about, because you mentioned 9/11, did you get into the Zeitgeist movie when that came out?
I did watch it, but that was a long time ago now. And I seem to remember that it was a little bit on the leftist liberal kind of side, was it?
I tell you what, I would love to go back and watch it. You know, like nearly, it's getting on for 20 years ago now. But yeah, even now I can remember like the first half was deconstructing Christianity. It was obsessed with deconstructing Christianity. Relied a lot on Jordan Maxwell's work, which I'm not very, you know, I'm not an expert in any of these things. I'm not a theologian or anything, but I think his stuff is probably quite questionable. And then there was the 9/11 stuff, and then it was like, yeah, this great utopian view of the future that was going to come, and it was kind of like you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
I remember the guy, it was called Peter Joseph, the guy who made it. And I remember him being on Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience, I guess when it came out, which I think was about 2006, something like that. And being really blown away by the guy. It was incredible how articulate he was. He's one of these people who he spoke pretty much for the entire 3 hours without saying, no hesitation, no mispronounced words. It was almost, not robotic might be the wrong word, but it was a hell of a performance, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But I got into all that stuff, and that sent me down the esoteric route, and it took a while for me to, and I came out the other side, basically. I came out the other side, and now I'm almost a Jesus freak now. Teetering on the brink. So 9/11. So we're going back 20 years ago. I was going to ask you, was it something to do with your own health that sort of spurred you to be looking into that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it wasn't just that, but in a roundabout way it was, because I developed around 15 years ago, I think it was, I developed Raynaud's syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of Raynaud's syndrome, but it's basically where the tips of your fingers turn blue, particularly when it's cold outside, you know, in winter. I was just looking at my hands. Funnily enough, I was over West Ham United watching a West Ham game, and it was particularly cold at night, and it was a shit game as well. We were playing West Brom, and I think it was 0-0. It was awful. And I looked at my hands, and the tips of my fingers had turned blue, and I was like, shit. So anyway, cut a long story short, I looked into it, discovered it was Raynaud's. And so I started researching, as you do, taking a deep dive into these things, and tried a few things. And I managed, I hope I can say this on YouTube, I managed to reverse it naturally. So I'll mention magnesium. Yeah. So when with Raynaud's, the capillaries in the top of your fingers spasm, you know, and magnesium helps everything in the body to relax. So that was part of it. I used iodine as well, because iodine makes the thyroid function properly, and the thyroid controls body temperature. But the big one for me was organic sulfur, which is really good for your circulation. And I think it was those three things. Touch wood, I've not had any attacks for years now. So that was a big eye opener as well on the natural health front.
What would be like if you went to the doctors for it? Is there like can they cure it, or is it
Yeah, I wouldn't. I haven't been to a doctor for years. I'll tell you a quick story about that in a minute. But I think they put you on something like steroids or something like that. We don't know what causes this problem, but here, have some tablets. It's one of those sort of things. The last time I went to a doctor was just for a laugh, really. It was to see if he would help me get my vitamin D levels checked. So I went to visit my doctor. This is about, I think it was just before COVID. And I went to the doctor. I said, hello there, I'd like to get my vitamin D levels checked, please. And he looked at me and went, what do you want to do that for? And I said, well, we're coming into winter, we're coming into flu season, and I'd just like to see how my immune system is performing. And he looked at me, right, and this is what he said. This is a doctor, a GP. He was an old guy, been at the job for several years. He said, vitamin D has nothing to do with the immune system. Wow. Mm-hmm. That's a doctor. And I couldn't believe it. And this was only like 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, they've been talking about vitamin D on Radio 4 for about 20 years in the immune system. So, they don't get updates, these people. They don't get updated. They do their training and, they might go to a few meetings after that. But basically, they don't really get updates. So, crazy.
Well, I would contest. I think they do get updates, but they tend to be sponsored by a certain industry. And their reps come and say, look, we've got this new treatment you might want to be aware of. And they'll take you to a swanky do and pay for your hotel and put you up. And that's how it works in the States. I don't know if it's as corrupt over here, but yeah.
Well, I do know that they spend, I think the last time I looked at it, they spend 4 hours on nutrition during their 5 years worth of training. It's something like 4 hours, one lecture, and they might miss that, so it's all set up for the pharmaceutical industry, really. It's nothing to do with health. It's a national sickness management service. It's not a national health service at all. I mean, A&E, don't get me wrong. If you get run over by a bus, you want to go to A&E. But other than that, I would personally, I would avoid these places if you can.
I think a lot of it's down to their own research as well. So I think you go through your 5 years and then it's down to you as a GP or, a health professional to then further educate yourself. And some people will do it, won't they? And some people won't. So I'm sure that I've heard of GPs. I think that my mum's GP, for example, has recommended like vitamin D for her in the wintertime and things for exactly the same reason and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you need a set number of CPD points to maintain your license, your continuing professional development. So they have to do some research, but I guess it's pick and choose. You don't have to do everything.
Yeah, it's all about the dose as well. So I think that some doctors do now prescribe vitamin D, but I would look at the dose and maybe question the dose that they're prescribing it at,
My mum got prescribed it a few years back, and I took a look, and it was 400 IUs. I said, well, you're not going to get rickets, Mum, but that's going to do naff all for your immune system. So I got her on 4,000.
Yeah, I'd take 50,000 a week. This is me. I'm not offering medical advice to anyone at all, but I take 50,000 IUs a week. I've been doing that for 15 years, and I've not had a cold or a flu in all that time.
Do you take it with K2?
I used to, but I've stopped doing that because I recently discovered that fat-soluble vitamins fight each other for absorption. Oh. So if you're taking two in the same capsule, chances are you're not getting the full benefit of both those vitamins. I mean, again, this is something I've read, so I'm not taking any chances, and now I take them separately and I sell them separately as well. But that's what I've read, and it would seem to be the case.
So you would stagger them then when you?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Yeah, so I take 10,000 IUs of vitamin D 5 days a week. This is what I do. And I'm taking 500 micrograms of K2 a day as well. So, and like I say, I don't get sick.
Well, yeah, I heard you say this. That was it. I was listening to it because you had Bajerski on, Mark Bajerski on.
Yeah,
on your
Mark,
channel.
yeah.
He's another guy that we need to talk to because a lot of people who listen to us like his stuff. And I think he mentioned in there that you hadn't been sick. Well, until something happened recently, you hadn't been sick for a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that as well. I had it wasn't like a cold or a flu or anything like that. It was like just feeling really lacking in energy, having some sinus issues, and just my eyes were slightly heavy, a mild headache all the time. But and it was like very odd.
I'll tell you what it sounds like. You're not allergic to cats, are you?
I'll tell you what, I'm getting there at the moment. I'm really getting there. She can't help it. She can't help it, bless her. She's one, and she's just starting to get those, kind of feelings that female cats do. And she finds my ankles very attractive for some reason. Can't think why. Where was we? Sorry. Where was we?
Oh,
your sinus
pain, headaches.
Yeah, so sinus lethargy, lacking in energy, etc. And that's happened twice over the last maybe 2 or 3 years. But on both occasions, I swear on my life that I've read online that at exactly that moment they were switching on a certain mobile network around the country. It happened on both occasions, and as you mentioned, Mark Bajerski, it's happened to him as well when they were switching it on. And the thing is as well, when you've been into natural health for a very long time, you get to know your body. You get to understand what's going on to a certain extent anyway. And I just know that what was going on with me was not a cold or a flu or something I'd caught. It wasn't because I was run down or anything like that, because I'm not perfect, but I take good care of myself. And I grow my own food, etc., and all the rest of it, take supplements. So, yeah, that's what I put it down to now. I would recommend iodine for these things. So would Mark, I think, as well. And shungite is good for protection.
Well, is the idea behind iodine that it's sort of radiation sickness?
Yeah, it's great for protection against radiation. Obviously, it's famous for that.
I'm kind of remembering something from like the Cold War period about iodine.
When the wind blows.
Yeah.
Do you remember Indiana Jones and which one was it? It was I think it was the Crystal Skull, where the film starts with the
that's
nuclear
not an Indiana Jones film. Sorry, Paul. That is not an Indiana Jones film. No. The first three count. You can shove the rest.
Oh, sorry. Right, yeah, fair point. I recently saw the last one and it was crap. Yeah, I didn't mind the Crystal Skull. Anyway, yeah. So they when he was rescued after the nuclear explosion, they were actually painting him all over with iodine, if you remember rightly. And that's what they do before surgery as well. If you have an operation, they paint you in iodine. But it's a much needed mineral that used to be in our soils before industrial farming. So we were all getting iodine through our diet. Not anymore. Interestingly, in Japan, they eat a lot of seaweed, sushi, seafood, etc. So they're getting their iodine that way. And they get so much iodine in their diet that there's no word in Japanese for menopause. The women don't experience it. They don't have it.
Wow.
Because they're eating iodine for breakfast, lunch and dinner. They've got seaweed on their plate with virtually every meal. So they don't really get menopausal symptoms at all in Japan, which is quite a big thing if you think about it. So, yeah, because I deal with a lot of clients, female clients that are menopausal or perimenopausal or whatever. So iodine's always the first thing I say to them, take iodine. I've got to be careful what I say here because we're on YouTube. I realise that. But this is, I'm not a doctor. I'm not offering medical advice. This is just down to my own research. But yeah, iodine is massive. It's good for brain fog as well. Good for skin, good for dry skin. So it's something worth looking into. You've only got to drink. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, how do you get it? Is it like
through Nutrient Nirvana, my company, we sell it, we make it and sell it. There's 2 ways of taking it. You can just a couple of drops in a glass of water, or some people paint it on their skin, like you see before surgery. But that makes you look a bit orange. So I I drink it. And a year's supply will cost you £20. It's cheap as chips.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend it.
So you mentioned that you grow your own food, did you say then?
Mm-hmm.
So how long have you been doing that for, growing your own food?
About 5 or 6 years now. I've got 2 allotments, so that takes up quite a lot of my time. Well, it will do now because we're coming into the season. So I've been growing my own food for quite a long time, and I highly recommend that as well. I mean, I think I'm a bit older than you lot, probably, looking at you. So it's a bit, it's kind of synonymous with older people. But the great thing is, if you taste your own food, if you pick that food and you eat it that day, the difference in taste is phenomenal. I never used to like eating vegetables when I was a kid at all, but now I love it. I love vegetables because I'm growing them myself. I often ferment them as well. So things like sauerkraut, I'll ferment my cabbages and various things, and you get loads of probiotics that way, which is super good for your gut, and your gut health is so important as well. So
isn't that another thing that occurs in the Far East that maybe doesn't over here?
Yeah, I mean, the Japanese have got it sussed on that front. I think they've got the longest life expectancy out of any nation, and that's because they really understand natural health, and they eat very well, and their food is delicious as well. So, but they don't eat all the processed stuff that we're eating in the West. Yep. They wouldn't go near it with a barge pole.
Sorry, I thought I had it in my head that you'd been to Japan, but you haven't.
No, China. No. I'd love to go to Japan, but no.
Just me too.
China.
Me too.
So your 2 allotments. How much of your food? So did they supply all of your food then, all of your vegetables and fruit, or is it?
I'm working my way towards that. I mean, I eat meat. I'm a meat eater, so
Good.
Yeah. But I'm getting there slowly. I'm self-sufficient in potatoes, tomatoes,
nice.
And a few other bits. And like I say, I ferment a lot of the veg that I grow as well, so that keeps me going. That's how our ancestors used to get through winters in this country. They'd ferment their vegetables, And it turns out if you do that, they actually are more nutritious than they were when they were unfermented in their original state. So you're adding to the nutrition that way as well. So yeah, they were a clever bunch, our ancestors.
Well, we've lost so much, haven't we?
Yeah, just a bit, yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to like shamanic practices and living off the land, we've kind of devolved in a way. We just want things brought to us. Shove it in the microwave for 5 minutes. And
well, I mean, to
TV
be fair,
dinners,
but then like the way people live these days, people are working. I mean, I work like sometimes 14 hours a day. So it's not easy for people, and the idea, usually when I talk about this, what I hear from most people is, I'd love to, but I just haven't got the time, but then there'll come a point when, it's priorities, surely, and I hear rumblings from the WEF about the next major crisis, and it could be a food shortage crisis, so it could be a very good time to consider doing this now,
I was just going to say, you mentioned about, it being taking up too much time, or, being so far away from the production of food. But potatoes are so easy to grow. If you just get some sprouting potatoes, throw them in the soil. It's like every 3 months, isn't it? Or every 6 weeks you can get them or something.
Yeah, it's successional planting and all that. Yeah, you get your early crops and your main crops. Then you can have Christmas potatoes. So yeah, throughout the year you can be growing potatoes, and they are relatively easy, pretty much. There are 1 or 2 bugs, I think, that can mess things up, but I've been pretty fortunate on that front. I've never had a problem, and yeah, I've got loads of the things. So
do you do like microgreening as well inside? Because obviously there's so much.
I've done sprouted. Let me get this right. Sprouted seeds. Sprouted seeds. I've done microgreens once, but because I've got 2 allotments, I don't really need to. Wow. But they are a very good idea for people that don't have a garden. You can grow microgreens and sprouted seeds on your windowsill, and just water them, and they're ready to eat in 5 days or on average. So they're a really good thing, and they're highly nutritious as well. So that's a great thing to start with. Maybe would be that.
Is that like cress and stuff?
Yeah, like the tiny little things. You just let these seeds grow up to about, sort of that length, and then you eat them, and they're highly nutritious, and quite a few of them are very tasty as well. Is my cat getting on your nerves?
No.
Can you hear it?
No, it's providing ambience.
Yeah, I might get a fire going as well.
Yeah, sorry about that, little bitch.
It's all right. What do you do meat-wise? Because obviously we get a lot, that's going to be your main source of protein. It's important for your diet. What do you, are you very picky about where you get your meat from?
I try to be. I mean, I'm not the richest man in the world by any stretch, so I've got to watch my pennies like most other people. But, and I can't mention certain places because you might have to, it might cock up the video. But there are places online where you can find organic meat. Sometimes it's not too expensive. I try to eat liver once a week. When I was a kid, I hated liver. I couldn't stand it. But my missus does a really nice liver dish. I try and eat that because that's probably the most nutritious food there is out there is organ meat. So if you can do it once a week, it's well worth it. It's probably the equivalent of taking the most expensive multivitamin mineral there is, eating liver once a week. It's super good for you. I love steak, so,
There's an old story about when wolves, a pack of wolves take down an animal, the alpha male wolf gets the liver.
Yeah, that's very true.
We can get these tips, can't we, from nature and see how animals behave. It's like I was watching a video before and it was like someone had a saucer or a small plate, and they put a lump of margarine, a lump of some sort of low-fat spread, and a lump of butter, and it was full of ants, and all the ants were on the butter. They weren't interested in the other two things. It's like there's clues out there. The truth is out there.
Well, I think margarine is only one molecule away from plastic.
Yeah.
So it's not food at all. And that trick works for hedgehogs. If you leave it out at night, any sort of rodent or cat or whatever, they won't touch the margarine. They're far too clever. But then an animal in the wild, if they get sick, they'll know what type of food to seek out and eat to heal themselves.
Really?
That's built into them. It's inherent. Whereas I believe we had that skill, but it was burnt away, as Mark Bayersky said in my video. It was burnt away. All this knowledge is gone, and it's kind of just left us over the centuries now. So we're very much.
Does this count? Because my dog started eating grass yesterday to make himself
I was going to
sick.
say that's the thing that they go for, isn't it? Yeah,
it's basically the same thing. Yeah, definitely.
Something programmed there, isn't there? There's a program. Eat the grass.
Well,
make
it's
sick.
like a genetic memory, isn't it, or an ancestral memory, or whatever you call it. It's just years and centuries of evolution in that species or whatever.
Because it can't be a learned. This is what's wild to me. It's like epigenetics and stuff like that. This isn't a learned behavior that a puppy has learned off the mother. I don't think this is something. It's like a preordained program, sort of there's a bit of latent programming somewhere in the dog's brain.
But I'm sure I've read somewhere recently that there were these monkeys that learned how to do something. And this was thousands of years ago, and scientists have discovered that these monkeys learned to do something on one island, and then the monkeys on an island thousands of miles away learned to do the same thing more or less at the same time, almost like they were communicating with each other, which is bizarre.
This sounds it sounds like Rupert Sheldrake territory. This and morphic resonance. He describes an experiment with rats. Where they have two experiments set up in maybe two different hemispheres, like one lab in Australia and one lab in North America, and they set the rats off through this maze in America, and I don't know how they tested it. I'd have to go back and read the book, but somehow the rats who were disconnected from the experiment could figure out the maze faster than the first rats did the first time. It's bizarre. It was like there was almost some sort of subspace communication going on between the species. It's just mad shit. Yeah. It's totally mad, but I'm down with it. I totally believe it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've done microgreens. Oh, I'll tell you what I wanted to ask you about fasting or intermittent fasting. Have you played around with any of this stuff?
I can't say that I've done fasting because I like food too much. But I suppose in a roundabout way I do intermittent fasting, yeah, because I eat 2 meals a day, and I have done for probably 10, 12 years now. So if what you find is if you eat good food, you don't get as hungry. If you eat processed food, if you eat bad food, you want more of it all the time. You want, but if you're eating real food, then you get full quicker, and you don't, your cravings go as well over time, I find, if you're getting the right fats.
I wonder if this is like a sugar thing, or,
I think so, yeah.
Like an empty carb type thing. When you think back to what our diets were maybe 100 years ago to what they are today, we seem to eat a lot of highly processed carbohydrates, a lot of this cheap shitty pasta and oven chips and this sort of
cereals
nonsense
as well.
Cereals, yeah, gosh. But which 2 meals do you eat, Paul?
I suppose I call it brunch and dinner because I kind of eat a meal in between breakfast and lunchtime, which is usually like eggs and bacon, maybe mushrooms, occasionally steak if I'm feeling a bit,
Wow.
And then dinner is like a main meal, and I might eat some homemade yogurt after that late in the evening if I've got the munchies. But I'll leave that one there. But
okay.
It's all good. I'm not perfect, I'm not perfect. I do the odd cake every now and again does slip in if I'm visiting people, or the odd biscuit, but generally speaking, I worked as a nurse for many years as well, so I've seen suffering, and I don't want to suffer. I want to live a long life, and I want to live a life free of suffering. And I'll be happy.
Don't we all? It's funny that I'm pretty much the same with the brunch and we call it tea, we don't call it dinner.
Yeah, it's tea, isn't it?
Yeah. If I'm working, sometimes I'll get hungry about 11:15, 11 o'clock. And then I'll have a sweaty butty.
A baton.
A baton, yeah. And then I have my main meal. But lots of days during the week, I'll go without. So I won't eat. I've never eaten breakfast, not since I was a kid. But a lot of days, I'll go through till tea time, till 5:30, 6 o'clock without eating. And it doesn't really bother me, like. But
yeah, I'm the same.
I mean, I should be ripped, really. Because I'm crushing the fasting, 18-hour fasts and all this stuff. I don't know. You keep seeing these. There was a story last week, and you get a story come out saying, "Oh, it's bogus, intermittent fasting. It'll do you more harm than good." Then the next week there'll be another story saying the other side of the argument. We have it with red meat. We have it with alcohol, with chocolate. There's just how do you make sense of the world?
I think that's deliberate, mate. There's so much conflicting information with nutrition. And that's deliberate. It really is. So people don't know what's right and what's wrong. So why bother? We'll just eat what we like and rely on meds if we get sick. A lot of the supplement companies out there are actually owned by the pharmaceutical giants, and they deliberately make crap supplements. But people think, this magnesium is load of old rubbish. It don't work. I'll go back to taking my meds, and that's how it's a racket at the end of the day. That's how it works.
That's a controlled opposition, that.
Yeah.
Putting out a shit product.
David Rockefeller said competition is sin, didn't he? So you become the competition, and that's what the pharmaceutical industry do.
Where do you stand on raw milk, Paul?
I love it. I wish it wasn't so expensive, but I love it. Yeah, I do. I'm not a big milk drinker, so it's not something I do regularly, but if anyone is, likes their milk, then I would definitely do it raw. I mean, pasteurized is just dead milk. They've just boiled all the nutrients and the probiotics and all the lovely stuff out of it, and it's pretty much dead. And then I think with the homogenization of milk is even worse, isn't it? Something to do with the fat molecules in the milk expand, and we can't digest them properly. So yeah, it's a nightmare.
It makes you wonder because it makes you wonder if lactose intolerance is. I don't know. Is this a new thing or is it an old thing?
I think so. I think a lot of these intolerances are over the last say 30 or 40 years they've turned up. With lactose intolerance, I believe that it can be reversed by using the GAPS protocol, which is a lady. The lady who created GAPS, I interviewed her. I think it was the second interview I ever did on my original channel. And I believe that there is a protocol involved where you give somebody a tiny bit of raw milk, like a teaspoon, over the course of maybe a week or something, then you gradually build it up. I'm being very kind of vague here. There's more to it than this, but that's generally how it works. And people have managed to reverse these intolerances that way.
Yeah, I've heard of a similar thing with peanut allergies, where they use microscopic doses of peanut.
Well, this is a totally modern thing because they started giving advice to pregnant women: don't eat peanuts. And we essentially through our advice from our health systems, we created masses of peanut allergies.
Well, peanuts aren't food. I'll tell you that now because they're really high in oxalates. Have you heard of oxalates?
No, what's that?
Well, I found out about this a year ago, and it's so oxalates are anti-nutrients that all plants have, but some plants have anti-nutrients, way more anti-nutrients than others, and they're basically a plant's self-defense mechanism. So they protect these anti-nutrients, protect these crops from being eaten by herbivores or insects or whatever. But obviously, when we pick the vegetable and we eat them, we're eating the anti-nutrients. Well, it turns out that some vegetables are very high in oxalates, spinach being one. I wouldn't eat spinach ever again. Wow. Chard is another one. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn when it comes to all this stuff. But it's worth learning because you don't want to suffer.
Paul, I need to lose a bit of timber. As on Instagram might be able to see. What would be your top tips for a lazy normie like myself?
I don't know. I mean, it depends what you eat. I think movement is
sausage rolls. Isn't it?
I have the odd sausage roll and stuff like that. I'm not perfect. I think. Do you move around a lot? Do you move around? Do you exercise?
Not
his chair.
As much as I do. I should do. I walk the dog twice a day, so that's probably about it.
Yeah.
Half an hour.
Yeah. I mean, that's the trouble with modern lifestyles, isn't it? Most of us now work and we sit in front of a computer or a screen or whatever, so we're not moving. And I think that's a major part of it. So if you can, sort of move around. There's a doctor I follow in America called Dr. McCullough, and he works standing up in his desk, and he even has a grounding mat. You all right, mate?
Oh, sorry, Paul. Went down wrong way.
That's all right.
Sorry, what were you saying about McCullough?
Yeah, he stands up at his desk now. A lot of people are getting into this thing where they stand at their laptop or their PC or whatever, and they're working that way. Some people have grounding mats now, which is like where you're getting these negative ions off this mat and stuff. So anyway, I'm trying to answer Ben's question, aren't I? So movement, I think, is very important. Getting outside, obviously, if you can.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're eating. Like I say, I mean, fats don't make you fat, so you can enjoy your animal protein and stuff like that. I would just try to avoid sugar and carbs.
So I had limited success when I cut bread out for a while.
Bread's a big one.
A couple of years ago. I guess that's the carbs thing, right?
Bread is massive.
Ben, weren't you on the apple and black coffee diet?
Oh yeah,
briefly.
For a while, I ate apples and black coffee, and that was about it.
For how long?
How long was
every
it?
meal?
2 days.
It wasn't every meal. I would have lasted late. I cut out all like sorts of snacks and dairy.
Well, I think that's what you need to do, isn't it? Really, in reality, if you're going to lose weight, I'm sure my wife talks about this because she knows a little bit about it, but I'm sure that she's told me that it's sort of like a 70-30 split into activity and diet, basically. So you get 70% of your weight loss by changing your diet, 30% by increasing your activity.
Right.
I would go along with that. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, the sort of lying diet has become very prevalent the last sort of 12
I'm good
months.
at lying down.
People rejecting.
Is that the carnivore? Are you talking about the carnivore diet?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It's a bit like Atkins, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I eat a balanced diet. I call it an ancestral diet. So
Right.
I try not to eat too many processed things, basically, any modern things or whatever. I think if I had somebody that was very weak, I would recommend that they ate a lion or carnivore diet for a few months until they recovered that way. But then if you're talking about somebody that's overweight and wants to lose weight, then maybe they should consider going raw for 30 days. I mean, if you eat a raw diet for 30 days, you can reverse type 2 diabetes.
What is a raw diet? Sorry.
Yeah, just raw food. So nothing cooked, no meat, just
sausages,
raw food.
black pudding.
Yeah.
Prawns.
You know, just fruit, veg, that kind of thing.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Would you eat raw? Could you eat raw meat as part of that? Would you eat raw meat?
I've
seen a man on
on
the internet eating raw meat once, but I believe I think it was a scam. Beef tartare.
Yeah,
Tartare,
Yeah, steak tartare. Yeah, that's the thing, definitely. And people are eating, or I should say, they're taking desiccated raw liver capsules.
Wow.
So they're taking the raw liver in capsule form and having very positive results by doing that. That's something that I'm actually looking into at the moment.
Do you know, it makes you wonder how much supermarkets are to blame for all this, because like when we were kids growing up, we used to get sent down to the butcher.
Yes, I did.
Or we had a greengrocer.
Well, but
I
went to
the baker.
Yeah.
Whereas now we just type something online and all this mass-produced shit from halfway across the world arrives on your doorstep. It's already 4 months old before you put it in your fridge.
Yeah. I grew up in Brentwood in Essex. Now, Brentwood is famous for one thing now, which is The Only Way is Essex. Have you heard of that TV show?
Yeah, of course. Towie.
Yeah, and all that. So that's what Brentwood is famous for. But if you go to Brentwood High Street now, you'll see the Sugar Hut where it was all filmed. We called it the Sugar Slut, but there we are. Sorry. But it's all wine bars and just and restaurants and this. But when I was a kid growing up, there were 2 fishmongers. There was the 2 butchers, 2 bakers. There were like little stores that sold groceries and things, just not supermarkets, like little shops that sold food, like independent chains and things, you know. So yeah, the world in my lifetime has just changed so dramatically on that front. It's crazy. And I think, you know, most people are unfortunately paying a price for it, which is why I started my company, you know, to try and help people out, because there are a few essential nutrients now that just aren't in the food chain anymore, or, you know, not in adequate amounts anyway, nowhere near it. So that's why people are getting sick everywhere.
Do you find that, because you mentioned earlier about sort of, and I've heard this on different channels, about the soil being depleted, maybe it's not got as many nutrients perhaps in it. So, I mean, if you're growing stuff in your allotment, does that not affect what you produce in there? That it's not going to be like it was 50 years ago, you know?
Well, I rotate and I feed the soil with various things like blood and bone and all seaweed. Yeah, blood and bone. That's what our ancestors were feeding their soils with for centuries. Blood and bone, seaweed, manure, you know, chicken shit. It all goes into the soil, but the farmers don't do that. They're feeding their soil with nitrogen, and there's initials involved. I'm trying to remember, but they don't feed their soils with natural materials. Of course, they're spraying everything with glyphosate and all the various herbicides and pesticides and insecticides, and you know, and they don't rotate either. Did you see Clarkson's farm when it was on?
Yeah.
Even on Clarkson's farm, and he's this, you know, big industrial farmer. And they were talking And the guy was telling Clarkson, his PA or whatever, that we've only got 60 harvests left in this country before the soil's completely bereft of any nutrients whatsoever.
Wow.
So 60 years.
I mean, luckily none of us will be here, will we? So,
Just speak for yourself, sunshine. I'm determined to outlive Prince Philip. You know, I know he's dead now, but that bastard, I'm going to try and outlive him. You know, I'm going to try and reach a higher age, if you like, because of who he was. And he's just a horrible, yuck.
whoa,
But,
are you like
I want to.
Are you like Nicholas Flamel, Paul, or what? There's a bit of
Nicholas Flamel.
Yeah,
Who's that?
Bit of secret alchemy going on. Have you discovered the Philosopher's Stone?
No. I don't know what you mean.
He's not read Harry Potter.
No, I've never seen Harry Potter.
No.
I'm not a big film watcher. I don't have a TV, nothing like that. So no, I don't know what you mean.
No, I've been reading about the Rosicrucians, and they're all talking about the Philosopher's Stone and life extension and all this sort of stuff.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I don't want, I'm not saying that I want to live forever or anything like that. I just want to live a long life and not suffer. And it is very possible. People can do it. It just takes a little bit of discipline. Yeah. I wasn't having to go at anyone when I'm saying that. I get very passionate about natural health. So if I'm coming across a bit bullshit, I apologise. That's not my intention at all.
No, not at all. No. Ben needs to get told every so often.
I do.
So.
I think a lot of it we all could do with a kick up the arse because especially our health. We take our health for granted. It's only when things go wrong that we start to notice that something is wrong, and then we look for cures or remedies or things that can help us out. Especially when you're young. I mean, and the thing is, you recover. Like we used to go out midweek and go clubbing and then go to work the next day after 12 pints and that, and you would just get over it. Whereas now, if I have a heavy night, I'm ruined for 2-3 days. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, I was the same. I mean, if somebody had spoken to me the way I'm speaking tonight when I was in my 20s or even early 30s, I'd have told them to piss off. I'm not interested. I want to have a good time. But you get to a point in life, and like I say, when I was talking at the beginning of this, I noticed so many people my own age, being diagnosed with these, conditions and stuff. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? You're far too young to be getting ill and, taking meds for the rest of your life. It's crazy. So I'm not doing it.
You just mentioned before that perhaps there are several or a few crucial nutrients that are missing from the food chain. I think you mentioned iodine as being one. So what are the others then that you feel?
For me, the biggest, most important one that I've really sort of discovered is magnesium. Magnesium is massive. I think it was up until about the 1990s. If you were taken to hospital and you were having a heart attack or a stroke, when you got to A&E, the very first thing they did was inject you with magnesium. Because magnesium immediately makes any organ or muscle relax. So a heart attack or a stroke is a spasm. So immediately that would stop the heart attack. I think Big Pharma put a stop to that. But magnesium is one of the big victims of industrial farming because it's not in the soil anymore. We used to get it from leafy green vegetables. Now, as I was saying, I grow my own veg. And I do eat salads and stuff and soups and leafy greens. But if I don't take my own magnesium capsules for, say, a week or so, I start getting leg cramps. Excuse me. Wow. I start getting leg cramps at night time. And that is a classic sign of a magnesium deficiency. Another one is restless leg syndrome. So, when you're kicking your leg at night and you can't stop. And, so magnesium is huge, and vitamin D.
Sorry, Paul, before you move on to just going back to magnesium, is there a way of getting it through your food or do you have to supplement it?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we should be getting it through leafy green vegetables. We can get it through nuts, legumes, seeds, like, various seeds and things. But for a start, most people don't eat those foods anyway. And as we were saying, the soils are empty or almost empty of nutrients. So, I found, I think I'm eating pretty good vegetables that I produce myself, but I've gone a week without taking magnesium capsules and the leg cramps come back. So I don't know. Magnesium is something that I'll always supplement with. But yeah, iodine, selenium's another one. Selenium's very important for you. Iodine, zinc. There are certain things that people need to take if they're not eating meat, because despite what the WHO might say, if you're not eating meat and you're relying on all your nutrition from vegetables and fruit, you're not going to be getting any B12. And your zinc's going to be low, I think, because zinc's way more bioavailable in meat, as are most minerals. So if we're talking about minerals, they're far more bioavailable in meat than they are plants. Our digestive system has to work a lot harder to break these things down from plants. I remember people telling me years ago, meats, if you eat meat, it putrefies in your guts for weeks. It rots. You're a stinking meat eater. What a load of bollocks. Seriously, that's a massive lie. Our bodies recognise meat because we're fucking meat. That's what we are. Our bodies recognise it when we're digesting it. It goes through no problem.
Yeah.
But our bodies, I mean, if you look at a cow eats grass and herbs.
It's got four stomachs. It's four stomachs to deal with it.
Four stomachs. Yeah. Not only that, if you watch them, they chew it, then they regurgitate it, and then they chew it again before swallowing, because they know they're going to have to work hard. And we've got Klaus Schwab telling us we've all got to eat plants the rest of our lives. It's crazy. It's insane. So, I don't buy the plant-based thing at all. I think it's the biggest load of bollocks of all time ever. At the end of the day, I suppose it is sad. I like animals, and I get people on my case all the time on my Facebook page, when I talk about these things, they say, "Oh, you're a corpse eater. You eat corpses."
Yes.
Yeah. To be honest, like the ethical vegan argument is pretty bulletproof, to be fair. But I don't care enough to start. I love sausages and bacon, so I'm not giving that up. Life's for living.
My survival comes before a fucking sheep's, mate. At the end of the day, I come first. But yeah, factory farming is bad. It is bad. There's no need for it. It is bad, and it should stop, and we should sort that one out, definitely. But
a lot is down to the profit motive, isn't it? So you were talking earlier about the monocropping and the pesticides, the herbicides. It's all down to profit motive. Same with factory farming, battery chickens. How many chickens can you get in a square foot?
Yeah, and you also need to consider as well. You're saying that the ethical argument for veganism is good. I would say, a little bit maybe, but when they're combine harvester, they're doing all that shit and stuff. A lot of wildlife gets killed that way.
Absolutely.
We're talking a lot of wildlife. So
ground nesting birds, rabbits, little more.
Exactly. So it's not black and white. It's not black and white either. At the end of the day, our ancestors ate meat, they ate vegetables, they ate herbs. They ate a balanced diet, and it was all natural. And that's what we all should be eating, I think.
Absolutely. Hey, we're running up to an hour now, and we've not really talked about your website, your business, and so we should.
Well, I think we have. I've mentioned it a few times. Yeah, my business is nutrientnirvana.co.uk online. I've been going for 4 years now. Just prior to the pandemic, I started. I was making my own supplements prior to that, and then I started giving them to my friends and things, and one thing led to another. I was actually working as a guitar teacher, and I was playing as a drummer in a band for a few years, and then obviously the pandemic put a stop to that. We got shut down, and I taught on Zoom for a while, but I hated it because if you're playing the guitar and it's just I found it really hard. So I got the ump with it. So I, started Nutrient Nirvana, and that's this is my life path now. I think this is what I want to do. I want to help people out. So check us out.
There'll be a link in the show notes for that. Yeah, what do you sell, Paul?
We've got all the good stuff we sell. Everything's clean, everything's pure. There are no fillers, nothing's added. We've got all the vitamins on there. We've got the minerals that I've discussed tonight, like magnesium. My magnesium supplement is very good, I'll be honest, because I boast a little bit, because you've got 4 different types of magnesium in one capsule. And we've had some very positive feedback. I can't say too much without getting you chucked off YouTube. I don't want to do that. But yeah, iodine, zinc, selenium, all the major essential minerals. I sell adaptogenic herbs as well.
What are they?
Okay, I was expecting that. Yeah. So an adaptogenic herb is something that helps you adapt to everyday biological, physiological stresses, basically. Wow. So you kind of stay on an even keel for the whole day. So a good example would be reishi mushroom, chaga mushroom, if you've heard of these things, maca root. What else have we got? Dongwei, all sorts of herbs anyway that are well worth checking out. I sell vitamin C shower filters. So you can attach these shower filters so you're not getting the chlorine that they lovingly add to the water, our government. You know, chlorine, of course, was gas of the year 1914, but they add it to the water for some bizarre reason. And some people have had some had some shocking effects from bathing in chlorine. That's essentially what we're doing if we have a bath, if it's not filtered, not to mention the fluoride in certain areas. So we can take care of that for you. We sell sanitizer sprays because they became very popular during the pandemic. So we sell natural ones.
Those are horrific. I mean, they dry your skin out like you would not believe.
Yeah, awful. Yeah, terrible. And whatever goes on your skin is going in, mate. So that's going into your bloodstream as well.
It's mainly alcohol, isn't it? That they made them with.
Yeah, who knows what's in there? Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, but you don't want that in your bloodstream. So yeah, we sell household goods, all sorts of different things that, as I say, are completely clean and pure, nothing added, and will benefit your health.
That's good. It's good. We need to check this out. Because, I get my vitamin D, I just get it from Amazon. It was like £6 for a year's supply. And I'm finding this out now that there's vitamins and there's vitamins, there's supplements and there's supplements. And the thing is, you don't know where to start when you're new to all this, like me.
This is what I was saying earlier about the pharmaceutical industry. They bought up a lot of supplement companies, or they own and they start up a lot of supplement companies for this reason, you know. Yeah. So yeah, I would obviously recommend myself on that front. I'm not owned by anyone, but yeah, it is very difficult to get started. Definitely, that's another reason why I started my old channel originally. It was to talk about health, and then I got started talking to Ralph. And the rest is history on that front.
Yeah, but you've got the new channel now, so you're sort of separating it out, aren't you, with the Esoteric Explorer?
I think so. I think I had to do that, yeah, because it was getting a bit confusing. As Ralph said, why am I on a dieting channel for? So I started the Explorer. Since then, I've made 4 videos on the old channel. But I do intend to get going. My dream for that channel is to make my own documentaries. That's what I want to do primarily. I want to interview people as well. I've already interviewed Maria Wheatley on there. I think you've had her on, haven't you? She's great. She's really good.
She's got a new book out. She's got a new book out about Stonehenge, hasn't she?
I've got it somewhere. Yeah, she signed it for me. Yay. So she's good. But I want to make documentaries. I've just started to write a script for one, actually. Have any of you heard of Esus? And when I say Esus, I don't mean Jesus. I mean Esus spelled ESUS.
Is this a Ralph thing?
No. This is well, it's not. I can't say it's my thing, but it's something I'm researching. In the 1st century AD, so at the same time that Jesus, or Esus, if you believe Ralph, was being crucified in the Middle East, people in our country were worshipping a pagan god called Esus. Did you know that?
I didn't know.
Isn't that mental? And it's spelled ESUS. Sometimes it's spelled with an H on the front, but usually it's spelled Esus. You can read about him on Wikipedia. Jesus. And this was a pagan god. He was one of 3 gods that they were worshipping at the time. The other 2 begin with T. Got very long names. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting story. Funnily enough, there was a drama made about this with Jude Law. that was on some channel, like HSBCO, something like that, about 5-6 years ago that I watched recently. But I just happened to be reading one day about Roman Clyde kings in the 1st century AD in this country, and it said they was all worshipping Isis, and I thought, what? Isis? Don't they mean Jesus? Isn't that a bit early, for them to be worshipping Jesus? But no, the Druids were all worshipping Isis, which I find very strange. So I'm starting now. Ralph Ellis would say, and I would agree with him 100%, that Jesus is a composite character. So he was made up of different characters and molded into one, if you like, for the purposes of selling a religion. And I think Isas Manu, which is who I am on Facebook, by the way, if you want to look us up. I'm Jesus on Facebook. He's probably the principal character, if you like. And then you had all these Jesuses in the works of Josephus, like Jesus of Gamala, Jesus of Caiaphas, I think was another one. And they've kind of just blended this guy into the one character. But now, you see, this all happened during the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, I think it was.
Yep.
And the guy that was kind of the big guy in charge of it was Constantine.
Yep.
And he was a pagan. So now, until just before his death, when he said, I got it all wrong, I'm a Christian, blah, blah, blah. But I'm trying to find out if he was worshipping Isis, because maybe I think there was also now this element to the story as well.
So you don't buy Constantine's battlefield conversion then, where he saw the holy Cairo in the sky? And
I don't know.
No, I think that's debatable. I think that's up for debate, like whether, because I've read about Constantine being a deathbed convert, and also about him being a convert before he even became emperor. And his mother was well into it, apparently. Yeah. And he's British, essentially, and his mother. They're from essentially British. But again, that's controversial. But yeah, this is so fascinating. I love all this old history stuff. And you're going to have to come back and we'll have to do this again, Paul. Like 6 months.
I'd love to, mate. I'd love to. Yeah. I tell you what, I'm just sort of a third of the way into the Isis thing at the moment. So once I've finished it, maybe I could share it with you fellas. I'd really like that. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can send us some top quality magnesium as well, some top gear.
I will do. No, seriously. If you send me an email, Phil.
Yeah.
And I'll send you some out for free.
Oh,
cool.
Cheers, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
That's very kind of
you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll pay.
Thanks for having me on.
You're so cheeky, Mark.
Well, it was tongue in cheek, really.
No. No, you can have one for free on me, mate. No worries.
Is the cat all right? I haven't heard the cat for ages.
No, I think she's finally fallen asleep.
Oh, God.
Thank God.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we shall wrap this part one up. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
I've really enjoyed it, mate. It's been a blast. Thank you.
Loved it. And links are in the show notes. You want to check out Paul's 2 YouTube channels and Nutrient Nirvana, the website. The link will be there. And, if you need supplements in your life, or drop you an email. They can probably email you through the website if they need some advice on what they want to do, don't they, Paul? I'm sure they can do that, can't
they? Definitely.
Yeah. Right. Wonderful. So we shall be back in 10-15 minutes to do some headlines and some weird comedy stuff, I guess.
Well, could call it that.
Yeah. Right, so join us again in 10-15 minutes. Paul, if you'll stay on the line for us for 1 minute while we play ourselves out. The rest of you in YouTube land, we'll see you very shortly. Ta-ra! Bye!